In 1965, India was on the verge of joining the global nuclear club. Homi Bhabha, the physicist leading the effort, claimed that if the government gave him the signal, he could produce an atomic bomb in exactly 18 months. He eventually secured that authorization from Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. Then, the leadership vanished. On January 11, 1966, only weeks after greenlighting the nuclear test, Prime Minister Shastri died in Tashkent. The official cause was a heart attack, though the sudden nature of his death immediately raised questions in India. Exactly 13 days later, Bhabha boarded Air India Flight 101 for a meeting in Vienna. As the Boeing 707 crossed the Alps at 19,000 feet, it suddenly disappeared from radar. The aircraft had struck Mont Blanc near the French-Italian border. The impact was violent enough to leave debris scattered for kilometers across the glacier. Rescue teams found no survivors among the 11 passengers, and the mountain terrain prevented the recovery of the bodies or the plane's black box. In less than 2 weeks, the 2 men responsible for India's nuclear future were dead. Because their planning was kept entirely off the official record, their deaths left the program without a roadmap. This has led many to question if these tragedies were a coincidence or a calculated effort to stop India from becoming a nuclear power. During the mid-60s, world powers were negotiating the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. The goal was to prevent new countries from developing atomic weapons. For the United States, an Indian nuclear test would have disrupted this strategy, potentially triggering a localized arms race with Pakistan or China. The most prominent theory of a CIA assassination comes from a book titled Conversations with the Crow. In it, the author claims a CIA officer confessed to placing a bomb in the plane's cargo hold, specifically to eliminate Bhabha and stall India's progress. However, the credibility of this claim relies entirely on the author, Gregory Douglas, an alias for Peter Stahl. Stahl has a documented history of fabricating historical evidence, including fake Nazi documents and invented CIA confessions regarding the assassination of John F. Kennedy. The theory of a CIA-planted bomb collapses because its primary source is a known fabricator. Without Stahl's book, there is no physical or documentary evidence to suggest the plane was sabotaged from the inside. A second theory suggests the plane didn't explode, but was struck by another aircraft. A local wreckage collector proposed that Flight 101 collided with an Italian fighter jet that was conducting a secret surveillance mission over French territory. To support this, the collector highlighted 2 pieces of evidence found on the glacier: film negatives showing the Mont Blanc landscape and a twisted metal panel bearing a USAF stamp. But Italian military records show no aircraft operating in that sector on the day of the crash. While other fighter jets did crash that week, those incidents were documented hundreds of miles away, near Rome. Disputes over the debris field and the behavior of French authorities created local suspicion, but the collision theory lacks any formal military or professional investigative validation. It remains a theory based on circumstantial scrap found decades later. If we move past the conspiracy theories, the 1967 French Inquiry Commission report provides a detailed look at the mechanical and human factors that actually brought the plane down. The failure began with the equipment. After taking off from Beirut, the plane's VOR radio navigation system failed, meaning the pilots could no longer rely on their instruments to confirm their exact position relative to the mountains. While at 19,000 feet, Captain D'Souza informed Geneva Air Traffic Control that they were passing Mont Blanc. This was incorrect. Radar data showed the aircraft was actually 5 miles away from the peak. The controller corrected the pilot, stating they still had 5 miles to go. The pilot acknowledged the message but misinterpreted it as confirmation that they had already cleared the summit. He began their descent to 15,500 feet, a height lower than the mountain peak they were still approaching. A final factor made visual correction impossible. The mountain was experiencing a whiteout, where thick clouds and snow erase all depth perception and shadows. The crew likely never saw the rock face before the impact. The evidence indicates that Flight 101 was lost due to a chain of errors: a broken radio, a misunderstood location fix, and weather that blinded the pilots at a critical moment. The crash stalled India's progress. Because the details of the nuclear program were never written down, Bhabha's death created a policy vacuum. It took nearly a decade for the government to reorganize and regain the momentum he established. The effort eventually succeeded under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. 8 years after the crash, India conducted its first nuclear test, codenamed Operation Smiling Buddha. A year after the accident, the Trombay facility was renamed the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. It remains the center of India's nuclear infrastructure today. India is now one of 9 nuclear-armed nations, with 25 active reactors generating electricity nationwide. Bhabha's goal of making India a nuclear power was eventually realized on a scale far larger than the original 18-month plan. While conspiracy theories persist about the events on Mont Blanc, the verified evidence points to a tragic accident. Bhabha's work did not disappear in the crash. It provided the technical foundation for the nuclear systems that currently power the nation.